Welcome back to the channel. Thank you guys. I really appreciate you spending some time with me today. The clicks, subscriptions, likes, comments, that really does help me grow the channel, gets more eyes on it. So I really do appreciate that. Now let's talk about the post spawn. I'm going to give you my 20 years of experience, different scenarios that I've run into in the past. If it's dirty water, clean water, lakes that fish deep, lakes that fish shallow, whatever it may be. Post spawn clues that can really help you turn your day around, because the post spawn is that time of year where you may really feel like you don't know anything about fishing. It gets super tough, but you also still have fish that are going to be in big groups, so someone could potentially catch the biggest bag on your lake all year. So nothing worse than coming in with 2 or 3 fish that weigh 3 or 4 pounds and someone catches 29 pounds. I've seen that happen, and I've been on both sides of it where I didn't think I could catch more than 5 fish that weighed 8 or 9 pounds, and I come in with 16. So very important to not get down and then pick up on the little clues depending on where you're fishing. So we'll talk about the dirty water fisheries first, because I think it's very important to understand the progression of pre-spawn, spawn, post-spawn, and how far they really move. Now I find on the dirty water fisheries, Ross Barnett, Neely Henry, a lot of those lakes down in Florida where there's not a whole lot of water clarity, you don't see the fish move real far. And in a lot of lakes, like the inside weed line to the outside weed line, that may be as far as they go. And then when they swim out into the lake, you know, they're uncatchable at that point. So very important to know that where you catch them at in the pre-spawn, likable pre-spawn areas, and then, you know, usually in front of a spawning area, those fish are not going to be too far away from those type places. So on those dirty water lakes, if they spawn right here, they might be right here. I mean, it's like there's the cove, the pre-spawn spot might be exactly where they set up in the post-spawn. So it's very important to make sure you're in the right areas and you're not trying to overdo it. You're not trying to overwork and look out here when the fish just don't tend to travel that far. So that's a mistake that I've made in the post spawn on dirty water fisheries, where I just think they're somewhere else and they're right there in front of you. So very important, don't overcompensate on those dirty water fisheries. The fish are not going to travel real far. Now on the clearer lakes, they can move, and that's like what you see massive summertime post-spawn bags caught on the Tennessee River where I live, Gunnersville, Pickwick, those types of ledge fishing lakes. They're going out to the main river channel and they're going to get on something. So they may be on a shell bed, they may be on a brush pile, they're getting on some type of cover or structure, and they're still in that big group like they were in the pre-spawn. They moved in, they set up on a pre-spawn area, they went and spawned, and then they came out in a big group still. In one cast on a shell bed, you may catch 29 pounds, and then someone else, most of the other people in your tournament, are beating the bank, or they're, you know, whatever they're doing, and, you know, grinding all day to catch 5 that weigh 10 pounds. So that's typically what you will find on those clear lakes where the mother lode is still out there. Can you find it in 3 days? That's not always going to be the case. They're not typically on those spots for very long. They may show up during your tournament or within like a day of your tournament and be gone, you know, in a day or two. So they're typically not hanging around. That's not going to be their summer haunts. It's a lot like the pre-spawn where they're just stuck there for a little bit and then they're gone. So if you don't hit them at the exact right time, you're not going to catch them, and they're going to be totally, you know, not in anywhere where you can find them. So very important. This is totally unlike the fall where the fishing is tough relative for everyone. In the post spawn, that magic spot, if it's a tree, a brush pile, a shell bed, a rock pile, whatever it may be, it still exists. You got to go and still try to seek that out in the post spawn. Now, a couple clues I will give you. Now, if you are fishing a tight place where, let's say the creek channel is right there and you have, you know, some grass, or maybe you have some wood or something where it's pretty obvious the fish are going to either be on that type stuff or they're going to be gone. They're going to be out in the creek channel. When you show up to those type areas, and this may be a lily pad field, you know, a couple isolated patches of lily pads, and then you have deep water behind you and you have the hard bank right there, fish can't push any further back in there, and you catch a lot of little fish. Typically what is happening there, those are fry garters. Those are the males that are sticking around with the fry, and the females, if you're not getting bit by the females, it's gonna be just little fish on those type spots. So that's one of those deals where it can lead you down the path. Man, I got a bunch of bites in that area. Well, was there any size there? In the post spawn, very important that you are targeting the right size fish. So I've done that a lot where, man, I'm getting a ton of bites. This could change by tomorrow. It's typically not going to go in the right direction for you. Every once in a while, some bigger fish will show up in areas. Now, if you're fishing places that are big lily pad fields or big areas where there could be a fish anywhere, then just getting bites can turn into a 6 or 7 pounder. That stray giant female that's been hanging around for a day could show up there. And I've seen that happen too. But if you are like right on the creek channel and it's pretty obvious where there's going to be a fish and you're just catching males, you're seeing a bunch of fry, typically you're not going to run into a big female in those type situations. So don't waste your time on those places. You got to be really clued in and keyed in on bigger quality fish. A bunch of males doesn't necessarily tell you a good futuristic story of what you are sometimes told in the pre-spawn or in the spawn where you're catching a bunch of males. A female could be going there. In the post-spawn, when you're catching a bunch of males, that typically means that the females are already gone and those males are just hanging around with the fry. So very important in the post-spawn, opposite of the pre-spawn and the spawn in those regards. So that is post-spawn fishing. Now I'm going to do some baits and kind of go into a bunch of different scenarios with those baits in other videos, but this is just one of those deals that understanding your fishery, very important in the post-spawn. Good luck to you guys, and I'll see you on the water.